So I kind of wanted to ask you about self-care. I thought that might be kind of a good thing to start into because we've been talking about that together some and reading about it, and for our viewers, there might be kind of a stigma about the word, or like, oh, self-care, that's like self-love, which in Tradland and other places, it's like, oh, that's bad, that's self-love is selfish, you shouldn't focus on yourself, you don't need to take care of yourself, you just need to pour yourself out, forget yourself, deny yourself, all the things, carry your cross, and
Mhm.
mortification and all the things. Yeah. So
Mhm.
we did that. We were good at that, but we
Yeah,
were
well,
never good
yes.
at self-care until recently when that became more of a focus. And so I wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about historically how self-care has been for you, like your understanding and your practice of it, and what caused a shift to where you are now with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of a huge topic, and I want to make one comment before I even try to answer. I think it's important for us to check our definitions. And so I like what you said about the term self-care can equal self-love, which can be bad, right? And I actually had that understanding. Self-love was in spiritual world a negative term. And so it was easy to kind of go down that path. Um, so it just can be helpful to say, what do we mean when we say self-love or mortification or discipline or any of those things? Because I think we've used words assuming a definition, assuming the way I'm defining it is the way my listener is defining it. So that I think can be really helpful. Or if the term itself is problematic, then agree upon a new one, you know. Um, but you hear about self-care out and about. And so I think it's good to try to work with the common term and give it a good definition. Um, yeah, historically, it wasn't really on my radar. Like now, I can't not think about it when I'm talking with other people, particularly, or even when I'm just by myself and kind of checking in and how am I doing, you know? But it's not something that was a practice. Um, I was very, I was very motivated by achievement, goals, duty, responsibility, being adult and showing up for that and not worrying about how hard things were. It's just like you got to get in there and do what needs to be done and do the best you can always, you know. And so it just wasn't part of my mentality. And I think recently you and I briefly touched on the fact that even my mothering and managing the household, I was just go, 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 go in whatever way I decided was best until I kind of was going up in smoke, frying. Maybe I was getting, short. And then Papa would scoop you girls up, take you on an outing and leave me home alone to kind of, I don't know, rewire. And oddly enough, most of the time, once you guys would leave and the door was closed and it was quiet, I would buzz around the house and tidy. I wouldn't just like go do something I enjoyed or relax. Because physical order helps me a lot.
Yeah.
And so I would say probably compulsively run around the house, put things in order, do whatever. And so that then I could relax and enjoy that time by myself. I always appreciated that he was willing to do that. You were the one who shared a memory recently that it seemed that happened when I was already fried. So obviously it wasn't in place to help me be my best self. I just didn't, I always tried to be my best, but the way I understand that now is very, very different than, in the beginning of my mothering years. So, so it was a long time of just making do, doing the best I could, frying, recovering to some degree, frying, recovering. And I enjoyed, I would say, kind of an incredible level of resilience so that I could kind of just keep on going. And then, like I said, I would fix my mind on whatever needed my attention, whatever I thought was worthy and just had to be done. And I would just show up to that with all of myself that I could. And so I wasn't balanced in pursuing things that I have come to understand are actually essential to being a balanced, happy, healthy human being. And self-care, I'm going to use that term, that is definitely a non-negotiable. Self-love, like I said, has a negative connotation in many circles. What I've come to understand in the last handful of years is that I need to be willing to be uncomfortable if it makes me that, and ask myself, am I loving myself properly? And one person that I've really listened to a lot and learned a lot from, Sonia Corbett, Bible Study Evangelista.com. She's amazing. She's a convert. She's got a charism for healing. She was the first one who said, love your neighbor as yourself, and your nearest neighbor is yourself. And it blew my mind. I was like, oh, like I knew it was true instantly. And then other influences were at work in my life at that time too, that were really tearing away at my old definitions or my negligence or my just denial. I was just going to be in the trench and, carve my way through. And I just figured that's how it would be until the end. But anyway, I was gifted with a lot of good information, and that helped me lean into that a little more and be willing to say, okay, what is proper self-love? Because if the second commandment that Jesus says is love your neighbor as yourself, he is indicating we are to love ourselves. What does that look like? So it's an important question for each of us to ask and to be willing to explore if we want to be whole and healthy. A big piece of that for me was asking God to show me how he saw me. He sees me, he sees each of us in a way that is unthinkable. I like to use the word scandalous because I think we're scandalized. We're not accustomed to really letting him show himself to us, letting him show his view to us. And when we invite him to do that, it's like exciting, it's terrifying, it's a revolution in your life. But, he's God. He's the best. He's going to show us what we need to know. So I guess I just want to say that because he's the one who loves us. He's the one who expects us to love ourselves properly so that we can love our neighbor. And that other way of, love everybody first and forget about yourself. I think it's easy to get distorted about that, to misinterpret that, and then to neglect yourself, which just leads to no good place. Even though you're pouring yourself out, serving everybody. I mean, what was I doing in my mothering? I was pouring. I didn't see it like that at the time. And I wasn't filling up. And then I just was like a cracked cistern, like just all of it bled into the earth and I couldn't hold it. So I just kept repeating that cycle. So now I do try to embrace self-care. I have an amazing opportunity in my lifestyle because I don't have to work outside the home. I'm retired from homeschooling after 31 years. I have a husband who encourages me to take care of myself, to sleep if I need to sleep, to watch a movie if I need to just chill out, to do whatever it is I think is what I need to do. And there was some guilt with that and some disorientation after being so driven and so focused on others and programs and schedules and curriculums and whatever groups that I was involved in, to let go of all that and say, wow, it's okay to just live the way I'm living and learn what that's all about. So that's a whole other topic. But did I answer your question about self-care?
I think so. Yeah, no, that's really good. And just kind of seeing that transition. And I remember one piece of that was when you read A Mother's Rule of Life by Holly Pierlo years ago. And she talked about the mother's Sabbath that she observed. Was that every other Saturday? Was that, like, she would take
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
day, and just like she would go out in the morning and her husband would stay with their 5 kids, and she would just spend the day doing what she needed to do, not like running a bunch of errands or just,
Right.
like entertaining herself, but she would like go to confession, go
Mhm.
to adoration for a while. She would go, hang out in a park or take a walk, or she'd go to lunch, and she sometimes wouldn't come home till like late at night. She just came home when she felt ready to come home, and her husband
Yeah.
was just like, I'll see you when I see you, like this day is for you. And he at first was like, I don't know if this
Yeah.
is going to be a good idea. This seems
Yeah.
like a lot. And she's like, I'm just telling you, this is what I need so that the rest of the time I'll be here and I'll be on deck and serving everyone and it'll be fine. But like
Mhm.
this way I'll be fed. And he was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. But eventually became so sold on it that he wasn't making a peep about it at all. And
Mhm.
he was just like, no, this is great. This is good for you. I
Yeah.
want you to go and do it. And you were
Yeah.
really convicted about that. Although I think you were trying to do it like once a month because you were like, ooh, well, gosh, I feel like
Yeah.
every other week would be a lot, but I could
Yeah.
try to do once a month. And yeah.
Yes. Yes, thank you for bringing up that book because that was really a revelation to me. I thought she was definitely inspired in the writing of that book. And there's so many beautiful things in it. And her own example is so human, so real. And yeah, I think she did start out every other week and then it went to every week. But why did her husband become more agreeable? Because he benefited by her feeding herself, being rejuvenated. And she did do spiritual things on those Saturdays or whatever, but she also did things that were meaningful to her, relaxing, nourishing, so that she felt just like herself, renewed, refreshed, ready to come back in and be available, to her family in a vivid way, full of life. And her personality being sort of brightened up because we do get weary. And if you don't have those opportunities, you just get more and more weary. So she definitely was a huge influence on all of that. Yes, I started once a month. I didn't even stay faithful to that very long, but I think it's because my longstanding habit was not to do that. So once a month wasn't often enough to really begin to practice it. I made a lot of attempts. I had little things to help me, and it was often in the back of my mind. But yeah, it was fits and starts, and so I didn't ace it, and I'm a high achiever. I like to get the top grade. I get the good marks and get the thing done. And so that really, it's not the only time that was an area of weakness in me that was pointed out. I mean, I remember back when everybody was still at home and we had the rule of life. So I'd read the book and used all of these really good tools that she walks you through in that book. And it really works. I mean, I'll just say, if you're ready for it, I mean, it doesn't happen fast. You read the book, you take your time, you answer questions, you pray, and it comes together in the time that it needs. And we had a really good rule of life. But the one area that I could not foster or motivate was recreation. Surprise, surprise. When it came to work or getting things done or achieving a goal or whatever, I'm
Yeah.
your gal. But recreation, I mean, and you and I had lots of conversations as you grew into adulthood because you you struggled with the same thing, not surprisingly. And we would try to encourage each other to recreate. And we would talk about it and then we just go off and go do something else. And so then we had to just get like spontaneous about it. I mean, one time, um, Andrew was over visiting with Hannah. They got married eventually. But anyway, they were, and he was talking about how hilarious the movie Kung Fu Panda was. And I just said, I think I need to watch it right now. And so I said to you, we should just watch the movie. And you're like, oh man, I don't know. And I said, yeah, I don't know. What if it's dumb, and so And we will have wasted all this time. We made ourselves watch that movie. We laughed. It was so funny. It was such the right thing to do. And I was like, wow. And laughing is healthy. Laughing helps. It's healing. We had a great time. It's a funny movie. And so we're like, that was good. That was good. And then we used to watch music videos. We used to sit down and watch Happy, the song and the dancing and the whatever.
Yes!
And we would just
The
pick a time and say,
music video.
it's time to watch Happy videos. And we would just sit down for 20 minutes or however long. And we were going to staple ourselves to the chair in an effort to try to practice recreation. But that's how hard it has been for us. It's like, wow, we were so entrenched in work. It's like it was like a chore to try to recreate. We enjoyed it when we did. But the point I'm trying to make is I was so neglectful in that area that I couldn't make it inviting for everybody else. It was on the rule. We came up with a list of things we could do. I asked somebody else, 2 other people in our family who seemed to recreate with ease. Could you guys head that department up, please? It went nowhere. And I just thought, oh, I don't even know what to say about that.
Initiators.
So that's sad. That's really sad. But thankfully, I'm further down the road and it's not quite the struggle, but it really was. That was a real thing. But, I'm starting to call myself, I was a perfectionist in my former life. I've said I'm a recovering perfectionist. That's a hard thing to get over. The maladjusted perfectionist. There's a good version of perfectionism, but we're not talking about that. It's just this striving, driving, restless pursuit of a thing that you actually never achieve. Because underneath it all, you're trying to get acceptance and be acknowledged and noticed and valued and all that stuff that you didn't get a full dose of earlier in your life. And so then you turn it into this thing, that you just chase after. And and I didn't even know that at the time. I didn't recognize it at all. So anyway, recreation, self-care, super, super important, not to be neglected. We're examples of women who have really struggled with it. And we've suffered because of that, but it's not too late. It's not too late.
That's right.
And you just start where you are and you just take a tiny step, and then and if you need help, ask for help. I did ask for help and they couldn't show up for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it was just so I would really get it, in the right time, it would dawn on me. This is really a big piece of being a healthy human being and being your best self. And I had to be willing to be radically different. It couldn't just be a slot on the rule. And then you go check, because I'm really good at checking the boxes. And I think it's not a checkoff kind of thing. Like it's something you do for its own sake. Mm-hmm. And the things of the highest value are done for their own sake and not for any other reason. So it's a little bit more challenging.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, and like recreation isn't the only piece of self-care, but I feel like it's kind of a hard thing to get. It's like, it's kind of this elusive thing where we're like, well, I do things for fun, or, I do restful things once in a while. And it's like, really, how honest are you about that? It's like, even when you were studying other like monastic rules and you're like, man, they have 2 hours of recreation every day. Yeah. Like that's crazy. We only had one, on our rule. It was like, well, we'll get it in there, but it was only 1 hour technically. Yeah. And we were like, man, what are they doing in that time? Like, why do they have so much? And it's just interesting because it's like we've forgotten how much we need to recharge. I mean, I find myself lately even struggling with Sunday rest and being like, just letting things creep in to kind of take it over. And then pretty soon it's almost a day like any other day. And I know I'm not supposed to do that. Yeah. But also I had a very scrupulous observance of Sunday before years ago when I was like, oh, I'm not going to do anything I shouldn't do on Sunday. And it was like really uptight and I was over the top and just like, worried about it. And and not necessarily reasonable. So
Mhm.
I tried to get away from that, but now I'm like, okay, so now what should I be doing with this? And just like giving yourself the permission to take the feasts, to take the
Mhm.
breaks. And I will
Mhm.
say, even if you struggled with daily recreation, you gave us like holidays really well. Like there was
Yeah,
like, it was
yeah,
like events. You did
yeah,
events like
yeah.
super. And so
It's
it
a
was like, oh, here
theme,
comes
it's
the
a
holiday,
goal.
mom's
Yeah,
gonna shine. Like, because you had to have all this plan and the
yeah,
traditions and the setup and the cool things and like, and then you would make yourself available for like that day or whatever. And we would just hang out and we would have a great time. We'd have conversation, we'd play games,
yeah,
we'd just, float around the house and do whatever we felt like. And it was just wonderful. We just soaked those up. So I guess we kind of maybe, did it where it was like fasting, feasting.
yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that was like you had an expertise in that way. It's like you could do these big events, big
Yeah.
productions, and they were so memorable and so fun and something to really like look forward to on the calendar. So that
Mhm.
was definitely like I think that's a big piece of Catholic culture in the home that makes your kids want to stay Catholic all their lives. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
there's lots of great, doctrinal reasons why you want to be Catholic,
Mhm.
but also if it's just so delightful and you feel like it's native and satisfying and you're just like, this is the rhythm of life and it has a season for everything and a feast for
Mhm.
everything and just kind of getting into like the magic of it, the
Mhm.
excitement and the fun and the beauty. And it's like
Yeah.
that was really, I feel like we really got to experience that. So
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that that's memorable. And yeah, and we do have some really good memories of different things in the past. We really do. And so it's really, yeah, it wasn't a total desert,
yeah,
complete.
right.
So I think, yeah, the learning how to incorporate it in a more ordinary way too is helpful. I think keeping Sunday a Sabbath rest as much as possible is definitely worth the effort. And I just want to make this little comment. I wasn't always like this, but I am now, thankfully. It's okay in an effort to find a new way or to compensate for a distorted old way to try something else and maybe lean too far the other way instead of being afraid to lean too far the other way, like you're going to make a mistake. It's like, okay, you were scrupulous about this and you're like, I need to relax. Go ahead and lean the other way and then just keep making adjustments. It's okay. Just try some things and make adjustments and don't expect to get it right the first time or be afraid to go too far in another direction. It's like, if you have goodwill and you want to do the right thing, you want to be the best and you offer that in prayer in whatever form, God's going to guide you. We can get really really hung up in so many ways on so many levels. I mean, I'm the queen of that. And um it's just that's too tight. It's too tense and we don't need to be so afraid. We can just try things and we will learn and then we can take the next step, whatever that is. So
Right. Oh, thank
yeah.
you for saying that because it's consoling and it's true because we tend to act like whatever camp we've leaned towards is like the safer, better one. So it's like, but when you stand back and look at the big picture, everybody's the same, really. It's like
Mhm.
the liberals over here and the conservatives over here, even though political language in the church is kind of dumb. But I mean,
Yeah.
it gives you a way to kind of talk about the factions and how they sort of like try to pull away from each other, but the harder they try, the more they just go around and meet,
Yeah.
and so it's like, because I've had that feeling, as an ultra conservative, where it's like, well, as long as I'm still leaning conservative, I'm okay. Like err on the side
Mhm.
of that, but try to
Yeah.
move towards the middle. But what you're saying is, it's like you've been too far this way. Now you gotta come to the middle. The middle is the good place.
Yeah.
You're already you're already disordered. You're way
Mhm.
over there. And some
Mhm.
people are way over here and they're over here thinking, I don't want to get too close to that,
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Yeah.
we already goofed this up. So
Yeah.
goofing
Yeah.
up on the other side, it's not really any different than what I was
Yeah.
doing before.
Right.
But at least
Right.
I'm trying to find the mean instead of just staying stuck because
Yeah.
stuck is not, it doesn't do any good. I mean, duh.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Right.
yeah. I almost
Yeah.
think stuck is what God is talking about when he addresses the lukewarm
Mm. oh, that's an interesting, I never thought about it that way. Yeah, like complacent, comfortable, not too concerned about movement. You're just like, I'm okay, I'm good. It's
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah. Even
yeah,
locked in fear though of whatever
yeah,
is out there, you're just like, yeah, for whatever reason that you're just
yeah,
stationary. It's like,
yeah.
this is fine. I'm right here. Da, da, da. And it's like, there's no stationary on the spiritual path. You're either moving
Mm,
forward or you're moving back.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and a lot of that fear seems to me to be locked up in our stories, our past. We bring those fears forward, and we're afraid to make mistakes. We're afraid to offend. We're afraid to get it wrong. We're afraid to whatever risk. There's just fear, 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 and it's like, wow, wow, what the heck is that all about? And in my own case, I didn't even think I was afraid. I didn't think I was, because I can be bold, I can do daring things, and I wasn't feeling the fear, which doesn't mean you're not riddled with it. I just I had it tucked away. I just didn't recognize it. I actually wasn't feeling a lot of things. So when I started going to therapy, it might have been our first or second session. She asked me, do you have any fears? And I paused and I thought, I'm like, I'm like, no, I don't really think I'm afraid. And within a few months, less than a few months, I realized I was riddled with fear. And so her question ended up being like a little door opening, like a little invitation to just peek in there. And then it showed itself in different ways. And I was just like, which it was startling. It was brutal. Certain days I've had some I have said some of those days were the darkest I have had. Um, but I will quickly say that it was with the guidance of an excellent therapist who was a woman of prayer, and she trusted my faith. I mean, that's what allowed her. She got to know, she knew me in a way before, but she quickly understood something that led her to feel secure that I could go places that were tough and it would be okay. So thankfully she read that right. And so I went tough places and the fear was there. But I will say it's better to face it. It's better to let it out of the cage and live in the truth and be able to say, oh yes, I have fear. I just didn't recognize that before, or I stuffed it, or I coped in different ways, or I turned it into different kind of energy. There's all kinds of things you do with that. And so yeah, having that encounter with yourself, letting those things show up, well, it just leads to a better day ultimately. So yeah, fear, being stuck, whatever label you want to give it, it's not living. It isn't what God has in mind. He didn't create us so that we would be locked up in fear and trembling. He wants us to have an abundant life, and he is prepared to lead us to that life. But it could be painful. It could, require certain sacrifices we didn't anticipate or whatever, but it's not meant to be scary because he is the guide. He's going to provide. He definitely does. So
that's cool.
yeah.
Even the therapy piece, I mean, that's a big part of self-care, honestly, because
It definitely is. And I know that there's still people that are really hesitant about it, afraid of it, or maybe they don't know they're afraid of it. Whatever. But we have more qualified counselors now probably than ever. The developments in the psychology sciences are amazing. Studies they've done on the brain, they just know so much about what's going on physiologically, emotionally, psychologically. It's a good time if someone hasn't ever thought of it before to think about it. Just think about it. pray about it, ask God, whatever. But, and, sure, there are bad counselors out there, but I just had a great one. I found one and went, wow, she's the perfect fit for me. It was awesome. She herself, part of what motivated her to get into counseling is she had a couple of really bad experiences. And as she uncovered this gift within herself and thought, I wonder if I'm being called to study, as she walked that path of discernment, she thought, well, at least if I become a counselor, I'll know what not to do. So she turned those horrible experiences into a motivator, into a positive, because she knew what it was like to be on the receiving end of bad counsel. So is that a possibility? Of course it is. But when you begin a relationship like that with someone, give it a month of sessions and just kind of discern it. If it's not fitting, if you don't feel you can trust that person, it's okay. You can just say, I don't think we're a good fit, and then try somebody else. Don't just quit. I mean, you would be tempted to because you're trying to open yourself up and whatever, but pray and God will provide, even if it's like bumping in, oh, that's a dead end. Oh, that was a wrong turn. You can find somebody. They're out there. There's just more and more, like one of our Catholic social services here in the Diocese of Helena. They have Catholic counselors who are, advertising in the bulletins in an effort to make their services available to people at a much reduced cost. And you can go in person if you're nearby, or you want to make the trip, or you can do it by Zoom or whatever at home or over the phone or whatever. So they're really trying to bring that care to souls in many creative ways. I mean, lots of innovations out there. But it's part of, I believe it's a gift of our time, that it's been so studied. We've got good people entering that field. It's becoming more of our common verbiage. The terminology is floating around. You can look up articles online like crazy. You can do a lot of reading and learning that way. Lots of times after a session with my therapist, I would just sit in my car in the parking lot and look things up that we talked about, or look up words that she brought to my attention or something. And I would just read and then sit with that or whatever. And I got a lot of benefit out of that too. So,
oh yeah, you were listening to podcasts and reading books and like doing all these things. I mean, like you went to town on it. It was like, oh, I know how to do this. I will be a student. I will do therapy to the nth degree. I will heal. Like, I mean, just talking to you during that process. And when did you start that? Really, like 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
It was August 15th, the feast day of the Assumption, actually, of 2022. And the interesting thing is, when I went into my therapist's office, she had a certificate on her wall, from the Divine Mercy University, I think is where she got her degree. And she had that framed on the wall. And I knew her first and last name, but I did not know her middle name was Mary. And so I walked in and I saw that. And I said, hey, my middle name is Marie. Happy name day. And she said, happy name day. And I found that very significant for my own experience, that my first session was on the Feast of Our Lady, and so I just felt like it was kind of blessed in that way. Doesn't mean it has to start that way. It just did. And to learn that her name was Mary and my name was Marie, I thought, okay, this is a good beginning. It really was consoling. I think it helped me just dive right in, which is typically what I do anyway. But yeah, I did. I did. I'm gung ho, and it's just like I want the most bang for my buck, and I want to do it. I like to be a high achiever. So, and I'll say this: even in my effort to move away from perfectionism and compulsion and some scrupulosity in there, all of those skills I practiced being that way, I now apply to run the other direction. It's just like, oh, I used to be this way. Oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go this way. So, even in your disorder, you actually practice skills that can be really helpful. They're so right there in your toolbox, and you can go, wow, I know how to be determined. I know how to persevere. I know how to try, and I'm going to pick those tools out of my box, but I'm going to apply them differently. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I learned so much from just listening to you and asking questions about your sessions and how you were putting everything together. And I was like, man, so I was benefiting just from hearing and then thinking about how maybe it could help me too. So I've ended up going to therapy on my own, to a couple different counselors, and one was like, it was good, but then I had to discontinue for a while for other reasons. And then my husband and I went to a different counselor for a while, and that was also good. I mean, like, you can compare them and be like, oh, like these were things, like I was also learning like what I needed to look for in a counselor through my other experiences, be like, oh yeah, like I had to start somewhere, but now I kind of know what to do and like how to kind of cut to the chase and like what I need. And so then when I found the counselor that I have now, um, I felt like we were more of a fit, and we've been really a good combination. But even that, like hearing your experience with your counselor was like, it was kind of like the dream team. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that with somebody. And my counselor that I have now is great. And I really appreciate her. And I've learned so much from her. I have had multiple times though, where I've been like, ooh, like, did we just kind of rub on each other? Or, maybe this isn't the right fit, or I can't, maybe she doesn't get me or whatever. And I would just like wrestle with that and kind of sort through it. And then we'd have another session. It would like, okay, we'd kind of iron it out. And then I started to see like, there's no perfect person out there. There's no perfect therapist or perfect combination of people. So it was naive of me to think that would happen. And I'm like, can I learn what I need to learn from her? And I was like, yes, I can. Or at least I'll learn everything she has to teach me before I think about moving on, because I just decided like, I'm not going to be threatened. I'm not going to be always kind of like ready to flee because maybe I'm not safe. Maybe this isn't good, So I realized some of that was in me, that I was like almost looking for something to be wrong. So I would have a reason to quit or a reason to go on to somebody else. But then I would lose the traction I had gained, the rapport I had gained, and the history and the understanding that my therapist had of me and how she was able to help me and all that I could take away from that. And so I was like, no, I just need to stick it out. It's so hard. It's like when you would talk about your homeschooling guru saying, don't change curriculum mid-semester, like just don't think, oh, this isn't quite right. I think I just need to like start over or, do this whole other thing. And it's like, it's very tempting, but at the same time, it's like, just write it out a little bit, like make sure it's not just you, like make sure it's also, that, and I think your gut will really lead you right. But your mind can really turn you around. I feel like the gut is more reliable because your thoughts are so powerful and, but they haven't necessarily taken care of you all this time. And that's where it's like, ooh, you start identifying these thought patterns and you're like, those are lies. That is so unhealthy. You're like, I've just been swimming in this toxic sea my whole life. A lot of it bolstered by the spiritual reading I did and stuff, where I maybe interpreted that it was reinforcing these kind of things. And I've picked it up and taken it along. And now I'm realizing, wait a second, also how cool the spiritual and psychological overlap is in therapy, where it's like, oh, that's what Saint so-and-so was talking about, but you're using these terms and it's like, aha, that's so cool. Or now I understand, like it's making it click. Why is that healthy? Why has that been something encouraged by the church? And other things are not. I'm also like interpreting spirituality and stuff that I had encountered before in a more healthy way, because I'm realizing it's like having the key to see it as how it guides and forms the healthy person on all levels. Before I didn't have the key. So I was kind of like, oh, well, maybe like this. And I made a lot of mistakes and kind of sabotaged myself in the process, well-meaning. And, here we are today. Obviously, it's a continuous journey. But and I just, for the people that are thinking, just even this whole topic of self-care, like therapy, we could talk about for a really long time because there's just so much in it. But again, it's like everybody, at least at some point in their life, could benefit from therapy. I fully believe that, because we're made to be a community of persons, not just an isolated individual, and you just never have all the answers on your own. But it's like, once in a while in life, you kind of bump along and you're like, I had an aha moment where I realized something. I'll never think about it the same again. That was really great. La, la, la. And you might go along years before you have another one. What I have those regularly now that I'm in therapy. It's like, woo, because you're digging, you're drilling down
Yes.
into all those things. And so you're just hitting like layer after layer, and you're like, oh man, like I wouldn't go back, even if it's
Yep.
uncomfortable. And you're like, I wasn't ready for that. I didn't expect to find
Yep.
that. Like all the fear and stuff. You're like, oh shoot. Like,
Yep.
or pride, or things where you're like, I thought it was that person's fault. Now it's like, oh, this
Yeah.
exists because of me, because of ways
Yep.
that I have allowed my life to be. And I have formed these, behaviors and things that now it's like, but I can change it. Now I understand it. So golly, it's like, talk about taking care of yourself and letting someone help you instead of just being alone, unsupported. And like you and I have talked about how the therapist, especially for like people who bear a lot of burdens for other people in their life through the days, and maybe there's nobody else in your life that is there just for you with no expectations. They don't need anything from you. They are solely there to be your support, your encouragement, to help you discern things, to get healthy, to be accountable. And it's like, that is what your therapist is. They're totally confidential. They are respectful of you. They are only there for you. You don't have to give them anything. They don't have expectations. They don't have judgments of you. They're just like, I'm here. Unconditionally, I am here.
Yep.
And I will stay with you as long as
to me, that is one of the golden things about it. I said to my husband one time on our way to church, and I was just reflecting on this very thing. And I said, a therapist's office is in some ways almost more sacred than the confessional. It's like the confessional. Why? Because you can go in there and you can talk about anything you need to, any way you need to, and you're not going to get kicked out. And you're exactly right. That person is there just for you. And that's the kind of relationship you really need. A qualified, caring guide to come alongside you and explore your story with you. So you're not alone. And you're not just, to your own devices to try to figure things out. But they come alongside and they journey with you, and they listen, and they don't judge, and they don't reject. All the things, all those big things that we've all experienced somehow: abandonment, rejection, hurt of all kinds, criticism, you name it. They don't do that. They're not supposed to do that. If they do that, just get up, leave, and go find someone who doesn't. But I mean, the thing that's great about that, like a confessional, at least the way I prepare, is I want to be efficient. I want to say what I need to and be open to what needs to happen in that space and time with the priest. But it's usually a Saturday and you've got a line of people standing there, and you don't want to keep them all just standing there. And I'm composed in the way I present it. Sometimes I cry. You don't know. Sometimes you're moved like that. But if you go into a therapist's office and they push a soft spot, and you trust, that's what the whole thing is about. I'm in a place I'm safe, and I'm going to be safe, and I'm going to be accepted. And you can just, whatever, you can let whatever show that needs to show so that it can be dealt with. And this thing about being uncomfortable, I would say I learned a lot of really great lessons. One of the big ones is to learn how to sit with discomfort, especially between the two of you. My therapist and I had a very awkward session one day, and I picked up on it, but I didn't know what to do about it because I'm the client. She's the professional. And I thought, I don't even know what to do about this. But there just was this shift, and it got really weird. And I thought, wow. And all week I thought, what happened? So when I showed up the next week, she goes, do you have any questions? And I'm like, yeah, what happened last week? What the heck was that? And she goes, okay, let's talk about it. So she just laid it on the table, and she talked about how she became triggered. She was highly uncomfortable. I mean, she's a human being too. But she very quickly said, it's actually an amazing opportunity. She goes, to experience awkwardness like this intensely is not something to flee. It is an opportunity to sit with it and just explore it. And I was like, wow, yeah, because normally you want to button it up or make it, we have all these coping mechanisms, these ways of trying to make everything okay. Everyone has their own style, right? And you just want to get past it. You don't want to sit there, because it just feels too threatening. Yeah. And here she is with a smile on her face saying, it's an opportunity, isn't it great? And I'm like, well, I'm not there yet of smiling and saying it's great. But I have really grown to trust her because this happened about a year into the counseling. And so I'm looking at her and I thought, I don't feel what you're showing me on your face, but I believe it's true. And you're encouraging me to live the truth of it. And then many times she said, just sit with the discomfort. She had other phrases too for the same thing. And I say that now to other people. And I say it out loud to myself. It is so rich. I can't even describe how important it is, because you commented on it too just a minute ago, how important it is to stick with it. It doesn't signal the end. It's not a complete disaster. It's just uncomfortable. But there is so much to be unpacked. And if you don't know what it is right away, it's okay, because the sitting with it is the main thing. Just don't flee or freeze or punch somebody, just sit with it and go, wow, and just feel what that feels like. And then the next time something like that happens, go, oh, okay, it's going to be okay. The whole point is it's going to be okay. And when you come through the other side, you will know something and you'll be the wiser for it. It's super important. It's super important.
And like to realize like the therapist is human too, like you said. You're both people on a journey, but for whatever reason, you've ended up in each other's lives.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if this is something that you've prayed and discerned about. And it's like, you can trust that there's a reason this is happening, even if there's negatives to the experience. You're like, but I needed that for some reason to teach me something. And like one of the uncomfortable sessions I had with my therapist recently, afterward, all week I was just mulling it over and I was like, man, I really felt like, unsafe in a certain way, or like, whatever. I sorted it out. And so then in our next session, I was like, I just wanted to let you know that I was thinking about these things that happened, and this is kind of how I reacted to it and how I was feeling. And she was like, oh, thank you for telling me about this. She goes, that's something that in my own prayer recently I was getting nudges about, was like that I was telling people what they should do and putting burdens on them. She's like, I'm here to ask questions because you need to say it. And I need to help you say it because you usually already know it's in there. And like, I'm your companion, I'm your guide, but I am not your dictator. I do not want to push you. She's like, thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I did that. And she's like, I'm going to really make an effort to not let that happen again. And she's like, and then she told me how unusual it was that anybody would actually say that to her and give her a chance. Because she's like, a lot of my clients just leave and they don't say why they left. They're just like, I just don't need therapy anymore, or whatever. And they don't like, or they won't even give a reason. They just never show up again, never say anything. So she's like, man, I wish I knew why that would really help me, because I want to practice better and better. And so then it was like, oh, wow, like we're actually helping each other grow. But still, I mean, she's really like the expert. Like I looked to her for a lot of things, but yeah, that was like, she was so humble about it. And so like, it was just like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah. So many good things. And I love what you're saying about discomfort, and that in this topic of self-care doesn't necessarily make you comfortable all the time. Yeah. It's about what's good for you, what's best for you. And if you could benefit from therapy or something like that, to not do that for yourself is depriving yourself of something potentially essential. And when you brought up Sonia Corbett earlier, she kind of explains like the healing process. That's really what's completed in purgatory to make us fit for heaven, to prepare us so we can wholly enjoy heaven and wholly unite with God. And if you want to do that process now, you can engage that process here and skip purgatory, because then you won't need it. And we're like, yes, sign me up. But it's like a lot of people are afraid of that. And they feel like if they faced certain things, it would crush them, because they are just so afraid. And maybe they haven't identified that about themselves, but it's like, no. There's nothing in your life and your person that God would allow to exist that would crush you. Right. He will support you. It's possible. You will make it, but you have a guide. And so you know where to go. Like, okay, where next? I mean, I talk to ChatGPT about stuff because I get some really great information from ChatGPT. about like
Yes.
specific things, and and sometimes it's just like, what would it say about this? And it's like, and I'm just like, Lord, help me discern, because I don't want to pick up anything wacky. But it's like,
Yeah.
wow, like even just
Yeah.
these little insights, I'm like, sweet. So I'll talk to my
Oh, yeah.
therapist, and then I take
Yep.
certain things that we talked about, and I'm like, I want to know more about that, and then I go talk to ChatGPT about
Yep.
it.
I've done the
it's like,
same thing. In fact, I wish I did it more. I've done it a few times and it has been amazing. And so my experience with therapy and other healing modalities, yeah, I feel comfortable with that. So when I'm reading the response, it's very, very like those other things that I've been, helped so much by. And so it's very sympathetic. It's just another good piece. And I think it's got a tremendous potential for good to help people. Like you want to just explore something, and it always asks questions to try to zero in more on what you are really looking for, and it gets to kind of know your voice, if you will. It gets to know, it gets to know you. It's designed to, so that it can help you specifically. You're not just one person among 7 billion, when you get this generic answer. And so, yeah, I have found it very helpful too.
Yeah. It's
So,
great,
yeah.
great supplement. Yeah, definitely. But
And,
yeah.
I just want to make a point about discomfort, because it can be caused by a lot of things. There can be many different feelings underneath it. One of the things I've had to really grapple with and be willing to just sit with is like guilt and shame, or like an interior critic that wants to rise up inside, sounds like me, and remind me of the lies I used to live by, or whatever, criticize me, shame me into behaving myself and getting back on the straight and narrow path, because I've been very impressive and done all the best things. And, my intention for doing those things was a good one, but it wasn't. I wanted it to be a pure intention, but it was all mixed up in ways I did not even recognize. I didn't know. But anyway, so when I began to change direction or lay some things aside, there was a lot of discomfort, a lot. And the guilt and the criticism from within myself, shame, it just like, because what I started to learn through that, when I was sitting with it, I'm like, wow, this is going to just run me down the street. I'm just like, feel like I'm going to be carried away by it. But in recognizing it, letting it show up, and then sitting with it, I learned that energy, those emotions, that force within myself motivated me in the past. It made me perform in good ways, if you will, but not perfectly, not with pure motives. It was like motivated by guilt, motivated by shame. Whoa. Those are not proper. Guilt for a misbehavior leads you to contrition. Okay. It leads you to contrition, but it shouldn't condemn you. So this is another thing Sonia made very clear. Condemnation and shame and accusation are from hell. And when I first heard that, I was like, whoa, she is exactly right. The longer I live with that ringing in my ears, the more true it becomes. Guilt should move you to something like reconciling with God, making a wrong right, going to confession. It shouldn't just haunt you and like burn you up. And shame is no good thing. Okay. Shame is just bad news. So if you're feeling that and it feels terrible, just know that you can try to renounce it, reject it, pray, get some help, get some holy water, whatever it is you do to try to calm crazy stuff down. Go for a walk, but shame is not your friend. It is not going to help you. It is going to condemn you. It is going to lock you into former ways, and the former ways can look so good. And that's where I was. And everything wasn't rotten about it. But as I learned more about myself and I saw the role that those things took, I had to be willing to sit with that extreme discomfort, knowing that the storm would pass. but it rose up and rose up and rose up because it had been so good at getting me to do the right thing, do the good thing, get up and drag yourself another 50 miles and do what you're supposed to do. It doesn't matter how you feel. There's more merit in doing something when you don't feel like it than blah, 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 blah. And I had all this stuff rushing into my head, and I thought, yeah, there's something just not quite right about that. But I had to be willing to just sort of hang on until the storm passed, and have that repeated and repeated and repeated, and it became quieter and quieter. And at one point I was afraid. I asked myself, what if I don't feel guilty anymore? And I thought, is there something wrong with that? I was so used to shame and guilt bossing me around that I worried what would guide me if they weren't there. And I thought, wow, I'm going to have to risk that one. Wow, that is not the voice of God. It is not the voice of God. Yes. So anyway, I sit here thoroughly convinced, like I just want to plant that into whoever wants to believe it, and just say, believe it, and just run with it, and just hang on during the storms, and know that voice will get quieter. That is not the voice of God. He did not create us to accuse, condemn, and shame us. Who do you think that is?
Oh, yeah, right. So guilt is, like, they often distinguish, guilt is, like you said, it's the contrition, it's the feeling, I've done something wrong. It leads you to repair, but it's temporary, very temporary. Yes. And then shame is not, I did something bad, it's, I am bad, and it just hangs on you. So shame is the language of the accuser of the brethren.
Yes.
So he's pouring that into your ears. You don't need it. And God never willed for us to walk around oppressed all the time, just wallowing in our misery and our, self-imposed retribution. It's like, no. He came to set us free. He said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Oh, and I found these really cool things about, I looked up some of these things here. I wanted a few quotes about self-love and Catholic teaching because it's there. And just for a tiny little smattering. Okay, so of course we referenced Matthew 22:37-39, where Jesus gives the greatest commandment, and the second commandment, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And then St. Thomas Aquinas said in the Summa, man ought to love himself out of charity. For properly speaking, a man ought to love himself more than his neighbor, since he should wish the good of virtue for himself more than for another. Okay. Excellent. He said to love oneself is natural to man, but to love oneself inordinately so as to place one's own good above God or contrary to reason, this is sinful. Yeah. So in God's order, we should love ourselves a lot. And St. Bernard of Clairvaux has some quotes about that. He said, love yourself, but for God's sake. Love God for his own sake. Blessed is he who loves himself no otherwise than in God and God in himself, which is perfect, which is heaven. Because, but it's like loving yourself for God's sake. Don't think, because I shouldn't love myself for my own sake because I'm not worthy or whatever. It's like, I think that what he's getting to more there, loving ourselves for God's sake, is like, because God made us lovable and he loves us and he wants us to be loved accordingly. And when we deny ourselves the love that God wills for us to have, the friendship to ourselves that we can give ourselves, that is wrong. It is not in God's order.
Well, I think many of us have come from such a deficit, like, of not loving ourselves properly, like these, holy quotations are encouraging us, that when we begin, we feel like we're indulging. We feel like we're overdoing it because we're so deprived. And we've had really crazy thinking at work within ourselves, maybe from authorities in our life, maybe our parents, maybe teachers, maybe spiritual leaders in the church or whatever have led us to believe a wrong understanding of this. It's definitely been a big piece of my healing to be willing to say, what is this loving myself properly really all about? I very soon understood that if I practiced loving myself, I would automatically love my neighbor. And so when I was not loving myself, struggling to love myself, I could replay different interactions with other people and see at work where I wasn't thinking rightly about myself, and I was actually projecting that onto them. I was projecting. And so there was just so much going on there, so much. And that's why it takes time, it takes a long time, longer than we think. Don't let that bother you, just start, because everything you learn is going to be helpful. It's going to be better than what you lived in the ignorance before. And it does feel very, very foreign, very strange, kind of freaky, and again, uncomfortable. It's okay to enter the discomfort in that process of learning and exploring. I mean, we need to shatter this expectation that to grow from point A to point B is going to be comfortable or safe or without, I don't know, problem. It's like we're trying to break free from a lot of, long time thought and behavior patterns and wounds too, and it's going to take time and repeated tries and discomfort. That willingness to go, well, I've got to do something different because what I was doing before really wasn't taking me all the way home. So what do I expect it to feel like? It's going to feel weird, very weird. That doesn't mean bad or wrong. It just means different.
Yes.
So,
oh, man. Oh, wait, one more quote.
Okay.
Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2264 says, love toward oneself remains a fundamental principle of morality. Ding. Ooh, isn't that cool? So it's like,
that's awesome.
This is really like, it's precedented. This is, this is something like recommended. We're just trying to grow in our understanding of it and our practice of it because it is challenging. And, you can take away from like the lives of the saints, this thing like, they drove themselves mercilessly. They poured themselves out for others. They always felt like they never did enough, and they forgot that they didn't eat. They didn't do all these, they barely slept and all this. And you're like, that's what I should do. Well, I mean, so the saints, it's hard because comparisons are really, they don't work. They just don't work.
Yeah.
Oftentimes. So we kind of automatically go to that to measure to see, am I doing okay? But you're also putting an interpretation on that person's life, their motives. Yes. Again, It's like everything a saint did wasn't necessarily saintly. Yeah. They could have been disordered in that. I mean, we all probably sometimes medicate with work, and even the saints were probably prone to that. I'm not saying that I know that for sure, but it's like, again, it could have been this thing that maybe it was just the love of God just driving them to this kind of immolation, but they would have discerned that probably and known what was too far. Yeah. And it's also possible that later in life, they may have had a little different perspective than they did about their, early life and things that they
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yes, so. I agree totally. I think that there are some efforts out there, I've heard some whisperings of, to come out with updated tellings of some of the lives of the saints in terms that we relate to in our modern day. An example comes to mind of, you read about some novel in 1850 and they're over in England and they're talking about pounds, so-and-so made 5,000 a year or whatever. And you're like, what does that even mean? And you Google it and you find out it was like, $500,000 a year or whatever it is, find an accurate answer so that we can understand. Who cares what 5,000 pounds is? I have no frame of reference. That means nothing to me. No, and so translate it into my now language and experience so that I can appreciate it and relate to it. And I think something similar could help us tremendously if we did that with our language and these notions about holiness, a fresh telling of a saint's life in terms that we can access immediately. I was listening to a talk recently, and the priest, it was such a good talk, and he was talking about healing, and he used the word wounds, and then he said sins, and he goes, okay, really, our wounds are the result of people sinning against us or us sinning? He goes, it's basically what it is. It was almost like equals. Sin, wounds, you could replace the word. And I thought, oh, I love that. Saint Therese, I don't have the exact quote, but it's something like one of the greatest gifts God ever gave her was showing her her weakness. Okay, we look at the word, we talked about defining terms. We look at the word weakness. Well, we could define that in a number of ways. And I've read her enough and that enough, and I've sat with that and I'm like, weakness. We could say in our day, it could be sinfulness, it could be woundedness, it could be vulnerabilities. It could be a lot of different words that we're using commonly now that are really rich with meaning. And she used the word, or it was translated from French into English as weaknesses. But you see what I mean? Right there, you could have this question of, well, what does she mean exactly? But if someone's skilled at translation and spiritual terminology and historical context and all of that could give us fresh stories about the saints, I think it would be so helpful because we could more immediately relate to them. We could identify what's really holiness and what were some, maybe compulsions, maybe some isms, maybe some all kinds of stuff. I mean, the saints struggled like everybody with wounded stories, wounded backgrounds, broken families, dead parents, you name it, they had it. And I like what you said too, just because they're canonized doesn't mean everything about their lives was the picture of holiness. But I made that interpretation for years when I was reading. I wasn't able to discern on my own at that point. I just thought, well, they're a saint. And if they did that or they said that or whatever, then it must have been holy. And I would measure myself to that. And now I'm like, whoa, holy cow. Comparison without a proper guide, without context, without relatable terminology. There's so much in there that can get in the way of our making a good reading and getting the inspiration. I mean, I read a book about Saint Gemma Galgani. She's like a super powerful saint, especially in like exorcisms and stuff. I slogged through that book. It was a thick, and I did it because I'm going to do it. And I kind of hated it. And I really didn't relate to her. So even recently, I think it was last week, I just said to her, I kept a holy card of her. And I thought I'm going to honor her on her feast day. It's April 11th. But anyway, I just said to her, I'm sure that if I met you in person, I would have a completely different impression. So I'm just going to honor you in the limited way that I can and trust that if we need to have a relationship that develops and I need to understand you better, you'll be able to show that to me. But I am not going to read that book again. I'm just not. It wasn't a good book for me.
Oh man.
So
yeah,
but
that was
she understands.
Patsy. Oh boy. I was like trying to get my hands on every Carmelite saint book I could. And boy, my spiritual director was like, read this book. And it was like 500 pages. Yeah. And everything she did was just angelic. And just like that writer was just lugubriously effervescent about her. And I was like,
yeah.
I wanted to like her so bad, but I'm like, you're unreachable. You're ridiculously perfect. Like according to this guy, and I was like, I can't even know the real you because he's stumbling all over himself to venerate you. It's like, that guy should not have written any lives.
Yeah. Just like, calm down. Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude. Write a pamphlet next time. That's just to pique people's interest. Oh man. And so I get like that. It's like, I'm sure you were cool. I want to know the cool you. Please let yourself be known to me. But we also get like these more modern saints where you can see pictures of them and you hear stories from people that they knew and like and in more like of a context of a lifestyle that we know. And you're like, oh, they did that. Oh, they had that experience, those feelings, and you're like, well, yeah, like we could be pals. Like it's just it's like, duh, all the saints were like that. But and they were amazing and they were all charged with the love of God. And, so that's really exciting. And it makes you excited to get to heaven because then you get to be chummy with everybody and actually know each other and all your quirks and funny things that aren't going to go away because you're in heaven. It's like,
Yeah.
that's who you are. It's just,
Yeah.
it's all glorified. It's like, it's the best it'll ever be. And so
Mhm.
that's going to be awesome. And oh, I can't wait. Can't wait for the scales to fall off of our eyes and
Yeah.
us to see all those things the way they are. Because
Yeah.
again, we're just like stumbling around in the fog and we're like, well, maybe this is right. Maybe that, and so that's what we're all doing. And this whole topic that we're talking about today, I just thought it's worth bringing up because there's, so much to it and so much that I think we're kind of afraid to go into. It's very unknown territory, maybe, or it's been stigmatized by whatever
Mhm.
religious group you were from, or it's like we know. So I won't name any names, but we know this wonderful magazine called Bella Grace that we really love. And our family like really enjoys it and we read it. And it's like a vacation. You open up that magazine, you read a couple pages and it's great. But not everyone likes it. And we tried sharing it with someone that was like, oh, it talked about self-love. Like that was terrible. No saint would have acted like that or talked like that or whatever. And they wouldn't read anymore. And I was like, oh no, like there's so much beautiful, good, inspiring things in every issue. Like
Mhm.
it's so great. And so I was like, oh darn it. It was like a trigger to them though. It was like that
Yeah.
word. It was just like, oh, how 100 ways to love
Yeah.
yourself or whatever the article was.
Yeah.
And they were just, oh, absurd. I will never read that. And
Yeah.
I just thought, oh no, like it's actually okay. It's
Yeah.
okay because God loves you and he wants you to love yourself so you can
Yes.
love your neighbor. Because like you were saying, the double standard thing doesn't work. You don't
No.
treat yourself like dirt and treat everybody else great. And I thought that for decades that was actually working, and it really doesn't work because,
Right.
as you say, you project and you act out of, you assume imperfect motives on the part of other people because of your own imperfect motives.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially when you're under pressure or, you will act out on the way that you treat yourself. You will, at some
Yes.
point at least, do
Yes.
that to somebody else
Mhm.
and you'll be horrified and you'll be,
Mhm.
oh, no. You'll like try to backtrack. And it's like, no, you won't do that until you fix what's going on between you and you. And
Yeah.
even like learning to talk to myself,
Mhm.
like I realize that if I say, I, me, I need to I immediately have this kind of accusing and very like judgmental tone where it's like, you need
Mhm.
to, I need to And I put these things on myself and I'm just really, and it's like, I would never talk to one of my friends like that.
Mhm.
Never. Um,
Mhm.
but and then so I thought, well, let me reframe that and let me talk to myself as if I was a different person and say,
Yeah.
you let's
Yeah.
like we're
Yeah.
working together, like
Yeah.
whatever, my own little trinity or whatever, call me a
Yeah.
heretic. But it's like, and immediately it was a shift. It was like I was separate enough from myself to look at myself with kindness. And then I was like, what? I
Yes.
can yeah,
Kindness.
kindness.
These words come around and around. It's part of therapy. It's part of encouraging self-love. Be kind to yourself. Be gentle. Be patient. It's the fruit of the Holy Spirit. Okay. That's really what we're invoking. We are asking the Holy Spirit to show up within us. Teach me how to be that way with myself so that I can be that way with other people. Kindness, patience, gentleness, compassion, goodness, those things. Oh my gosh. It's so beautiful. And these are, these words, these quotes, all of this, these are the guides we can trust. These are the markers. It's not just words. It's not just trendy language. It all has meaning. And it doesn't have to be super spiritualized for us to see like this. Am I kind to myself, fruit of the Holy Spirit? Am I patient? Am I gentle? Am I good to myself? It's just like a little examination. And if you aren't, it's okay. It's a starting point. Don't beat yourself up, please. It's part of being kind and gentle. And you'll notice it and you'll go, oh, there I go again. I'm just going to be gentle. I'm just going to notice it and start again. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to condemn. I'm not going to shame. This is the voice of God, okay? It is so clearly the opposite of that other that we talked about before. It's the Holy Spirit.
Right. It's like so simple. It's there in
Yep.
scripture. Like from
Yep.
the beginning, it was
Yep.
so. We just had a conference. Father Terence Chartier gave us at Trad Recovery a conference about maintaining trad ties, or like with people that like you've maybe left a group, but you still have people in there, like how to interact and maintain relationships and discern things and stuff. And one of the things he said in there, he gave a bunch of advice, but he's like, I always tell people the 11th commandment is thou shalt not beat thyself up.
Yes.
It's like, it's so
yes.
Because like nowhere are you supposed to just pound yourself. And then I listened to this really cool talk that Father Mike Schmitz gave recently. It was like 7 minutes about what is love. And he talked about, lust and use and all these things that are sins against love. But he said, what's another sin against love is indifference. Like indifference towards another person. And he said, Pope St. John Paul II defined chastity as the quickness of one to recognize the dignity of the other.
Ooh.
So chastity is a big virtue, and it can even apply to yourself. If you treat yourself like dirt, you are not being chaste in your own being. So again, it's like you cannot be one way on the inside and another way on the outside. Everything's fine out here, and inside I'm terrible. And one thing that really brought this up for me was Sonia Corbett's mirror exercise that she recommended you do as part of her Sacred Healing Masterclass. And I told you about that, but it was like, I won't go into all of it, but it was like, you have to sit in front of a mirror and just look at yourself quietly for like at least a half an hour,
a long time.
Not an hour. Yeah. And, and you ask these questions, he gives you these questions where you kind of like, you're trying to know yourself, and you're asking God to show you yourself as he sees you. And you're supposed to sit there until you receive that. And that was so hard. I could hardly look at myself. I had to look away many times. I cried. It was just like, I did not expect it to be like that. But honestly, I procrastinated about doing this exercise for a long time. I had this subconscious feeling that it was not going to be easy. And I don't look at myself in the mirror unless I really have to anyway. So I was like, oh. And I had like this picture of the Sacred Heart next to the mirror that I was looking at. And I kept like looking at him like, can I do this? And then I would look back at myself, because it was like, he was looking at me with love. And so it was like, okay, he loves me. So I guess I can try to at least encounter myself. But it was like, oh, like there is that person, that face, that person that I'm basically running from in guilt and shame because I'm a failure and I can't face all the things I've done, and and how I've let people down and things, and that's all looking at me in the mirror, and I have to look it in the eyes. And it was just like, ooh, I mean, it really it undid something very unhealthy in me though. And I really have felt a lot better since, a lot more peaceful, and I realized after that I finally could make friends with myself, and that I could not just jump right into beating on myself. And that wasn't the first place I went to anymore. When things happened, it was like I could kind of evaluate, and I was willing to consider my accountability and responsibility and like make amends. But it wasn't like, oh geez, okay, I'll just take it all. Yeah, everybody, I'm just going to say I'm sorry all the time, even if I know it wasn't my fault, because somebody needs to say it and it'll make you all feel better. And then we're covered. But it's like every time I did that, it's like whipping yourself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And it's like, whoa, even if you deserve it, like by all means, say you're sorry sometimes, but don't let it be this chronic thing that just pops out of your mouth. And I'm still working on it. I'm training my kids to do it. I realize they're like, oh, sorry, Mom, sorry. And I'm like, wait, why are you saying I'm sorry? You don't have to be sorry for anything.
Yeah. I know. It's really amazing. But, look at the difference it made. What a beautiful shift, and interesting that it would be so hard, right? To just look at yourself lovingly. But the more you do that, the easier it gets. And again, the gentleness and the kindness that takes up residence in your spirit, that you practice it toward yourself. And then you just look on the whole world differently. You just do automatically. You give everybody grace. You're just like, wow, everyone's dealing with a boatload of stuff. I have no idea. And I just need to be really compassionate, really merciful, and ready to forgive, and just be merciful to them, to myself. And again, that's going to be way, way, way more healing. It's going to help you grow in goodness and everything wonderful much more effectively than whipping yourself, beating yourself. I mean, it's not abusive for one thing. It's just totally loving. It's totally the way God is with us. Look at the prodigal son and the father and all of that. Not once did a harsh word leave the father's lips. He never said, "What did you do with the money?" Or how dare you show your face here again? No, that's God. That's God rushing out to meet him.
That story is so rich. I mean, and it's like every time I sit with it, I come away with something a little more, but it's like the last time I was praying with that scripture, I was just like, man, like he's waiting, looking for the son to come back. So he sees, as soon as he sees him in the distance, he's like, "Rah!" And he goes running after him. He doesn't even wait for him to come. And all the things he embraces him. It's not like, before I touch you, I need to know we're cool. It was, and the son is like, he's got his little speech, his guilt and shame speech. And, and he gives that, and the father doesn't even acknowledge it. He doesn't even engage it. He just acts like nothing was said. And he's like, "Come into the house and we're going to dress you and we'll, have a feast and stuff." And the son was probably just like, "Oh my gosh." Like it was the last thing he expected. He was totally unprepared for it. Although it's like that father always loved his son like that. The son just couldn't see it until that moment. And he didn't even come back for that. He just came back to get a sit down meal that wasn't pig scraps. But it's like the father is, why do we miss that in scripture? It's like, were we just stuck on he's going to make the ground open up and swallow all of us if we do something we're not supposed to do? I mean, it's not a dichotomy. It's kind of hard to understand some of those Old Testament renderings of God, but also they were instructional tools, like the way they were framed and stuff too. It's like, because that's what people could receive then. That's all they could receive of God and their interaction with God and how they needed to engage that. But more and more was revealed as time went by, because God was like, "That's not enough. I want you to know this and this and this about me." And we're in the age of mercy, and all these wonderful things are coming out to just further illustrate that. And it's like, never has it been so inviting or so easy to run into the arms of God and his love and mercy. Never. And that doesn't mean you can do whatever in the heck you want and nothing bad will happen to you, because of course that wouldn't even work. Like, you're not running to God if you're doing those things, you're running away from God. So, but if you keep tripping and stumbling on your way, well, he's still waiting, and he's going to run to you. He'll pick you up every time so you can keep going. He's not even going to make you walk alone and say, "Yeah, come up here, come up to my throne." And then, you lay there and grovel for a while, and then maybe I'll come down and, tap you on the shoulder or something. It just totally, that whole story just blew up that image. And yet we still fall into that.
Yeah. Well, I think we're just looking we complicate things for one thing. And we're just, I don't know. I think we're imposing we're projecting onto God. We impose our own wounds on him. And again, we don't keep refreshing our definitions or something. We kind of become comfortable with our own constructs and concepts, or we want to manage it and control it, even if that's a subconscious thing, which it often can be. We're not even really conscious of all that's going on. But if again, I think God will show up if we invite him to, and we let him. He'll bring those scriptures to our attention. He'll speak move our hearts in different ways. We'll have a conversation with someone. We'll hear a talk or read a quote or whatever. And he will, that still small voice is going to come into us, and he will keep showing up. And even if we are, falling and stumbling, and we do, I mean, we're all sinners, we keep on doing it. And he doesn't abandon us. It's like he can't abandon us, because that's not the way he is. That's the way we will be. I can't take it anymore. I'm done with this, or whatever. And he can't be like that. He just can't be. His nature is faithfulness. It's essential to him. So he has to be true to that. He's going to be. So he will keep receiving us. He just will. And that's the good news. That's mercy. There's no end to it. And there's our sins, our falls, our weaknesses will come to an end. We get discouraged, but they're finite. Ultimately, they are numbered. His mercy is not numbered. He's God. We can't over-offend him. We can't wear him out. We can't. We wear ourselves out. But then we're back to ourselves. Now, if we've decided we want to try to practice kindness and patience and compassion and all of that, it's just another opportunity to practice that. I mean, again, it actually turns into good news. You fail, you sin, you blow it, you whatever, you yell at your husband. And then you're like, wow, I just did that thing. I didn't want to do that again. But rather than beat myself up, that's a great commandment. Don't beat yourself up. Don't, because that's not loving. You just look at yourself and you go, oh, I don't like that. I'm really sorry. And I'm going to try not to do that again. I mean, it's such a different process. It's so beautiful. And that's reconciliation. That's all God wants. He wants to turn all these falls and faults and weaknesses and wounds. He wants to turn them into union. That's always his desire. It isn't to shame or send us away. It's to draw us into relationship with him. And that to me is such a positive way to view it. So when we find ourselves in a dark spell or behavior or whatever, we go, whoa, God wants me back. Just turn to him. And again, Therese, she is the master of this kind of teaching. She is the one to guide us on this way. Her teaching is so beautiful. It is so gentle and kind and childlike in all the best ways. I mean, she is just, you can't fail with her. She's so awesome. So if you're looking for a saint to help you on the way, check her out because she's got that all figured out. And she's a doctor of the church.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, she is just a mine. And we were both talking about that awesome book by Father Michael Gately, 33 Days to Merciful Love, A Consecration to Divine Mercy. And that's very led by St. Therese of Lisieux's spirituality and her writings are just interspersed throughout. And it is like such an eye-opening, confidence boosting just encounter with God and how he wants to meet us, how he looks at us, what he offers us, and how easy it is to get to him. Like, it's like, and it just gives you like this whole new outlook that is true and just mind blowing. But it's that book will never get old. And I totally recommend it. Even to people who are like sitting there like, I don't know if I believe in God. I can't believe there's a loving God. I can't go to church because if I walk into the building, it makes me feel sick because of my terrible experiences. And I just don't know, or I fear hell all the time. It's like, read that book, please read that book. If you read one book, that's the one I can think of that would get you the closest to knowing who God actually is and just shutting all that other stuff off because those are just noise. They're just noisy lies and distortions. They're man-made images of God that have just like fossils. They've just accrued over time. You've inherited that from whatever source. Just throw it away. Just start over. Do yourself a favor. And didn't you tell me too that St. Therese's works have they're in the process of being sort of like republished as she wrote them because the book that we have, The Story of a Soul, was actually embellished with pious effusions and things to make it more like the pious literature of the time. And like her sister actually changed the manuscript in some places to sort of, because she didn't want people to be scandalized by Therese and the way, like the direct way she said things like, oh, can you just talk about that for a minute? Because when you told me that, I was like, I mean, she's already like so mind blowing, but like even more, we just don't know it yet.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's hilarious, but I think, that ties in with comments earlier about the lives of the saints and how they were presented. And perhaps there was a benefit at some point in history to present them that way. Maybe it was inspiring. I don't know. But you see there, someone took it upon themselves with a good intention. They didn't want people to be scandalized. Well, what was it in her teaching that was scandalous? What were they afraid of? Like, I don't know. And so they embellished. And then when you find out, you're like, oh, so the work is still good. It still holds up. And it's, recommended reading always. You're not going to be sent in a wrong direction. But it's like a new translation, a new presentation, more authentic and in good time. It's sort of like even teaching in the church. There's like this evolution at work in teaching, this sort of ongoing revelation. If we're all frozen in time, it would be sufficient and we would have what we need and it would get us to the goal, heaven, right? But the ongoing evolution of thought and doctrine or ways of expressing it or understanding it, I think is really healthy. Just coming back around and revisiting and saying, let's take a fresh look at that with what we know now. What we knew before was good, but we keep growing in our knowing and our understanding in these nuances. I mean, does anybody want to go back to before theology of the body? Please. I mean, it was a long time in coming and I hardly even know about it, but I mean, I know enough to go, oh, thank you, God. That was a deeper revelation, And some people might say, oh, we don't need any new teachings. It's like, oh, yes, we do. We're not static. We don't stay the same. We don't express things the same. Language doesn't even stay the same if it's a living language. It evolves. It changes. The way we use our words, what words we use. I mean, it just so yeah. And then the way that we interact with the world, or what are the issues that are the big thing for us now, it's going to be different in 200 years. So we need ways to plug in now.
Right.
And so yeah, a more accurate rendering of the actual manuscript would be just such a delight. I mean, wow. But I mean, right. She's already canonized. She's a doctor of the church. Whatever access they've had to documents, it was enough, But, it can take long years for the rest of us, Joe Catholic, Jane Catholic, whatever, to be the beneficiaries of the really great, resources.
Right. Oh, man. I know. I just love that, too. It's like I just was. Your daughter, my sister, Hannah, just shared with me this app called Finch. And you hatch this little baby bird, and every day you take care of the baby bird by meeting certain goals of self-care. So it asks you all these questions in the beginning about things that you're working on or that you need help with, and like things, why things are hard for you, whatever. Like you answer all these questions, and then it kind of sets up this little plan for you, and you can go in and totally edit and add stuff. But then you can also meet friends who also use the app and share a goal. So every day it shows you if they did it yet, or you can encourage them to do it, and when they do it, you can send them kudos, and so you're keeping track with each other, though, like, I did this today, you did this. So it's like kind of like body doubling. And it's really fun. And there's like these happy little chirps when you get to check off something that you did, and you get these little things. You can go buy stuff for your nest or whatever. Like, I mean, you can spend a lot of time in there, but you can also just kind of simply go in there every day and be like, I took care of my bird, I took care of myself, and I made sure that my friends are taking care of themselves too. Like, it's so cute. It's super cute.
So awesome.
And I was like, I don't usually get into stuff like that, but I was like, that is cool.
Yeah.
I think I should try that. Yeah. And anyway, and so that was just fun. And even like, if you're long distance from people, it makes you feel like, well, what's going on with each other.
Yeah.
And you're like actually building each other up towards these things that are necessary that otherwise you might just not do, because nobody's going to know if I shower or not, or if I exercise or not, or eat breakfast or not. Yeah. And it's like, no, like, let's get you brush your teeth today.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's one of those things that makes you think. So in that app, it has these little things like answer a question today, see what your friend said. And it was like, do you feel like this moment in time is like the time for you, or do you feel like you would have liked to live in a different period in history, or belonged better in a different period of history? And I was like, I've liked other periods in history, but definitely I want to be now. I'm so grateful to be now. Like you said, who would go back? And all these things like theology of the body, it's like, it's not new teaching, it's reframing traditional teaching and a deep dive so that we can finally understand it in the terms that we need to hear today, because the day really needed that. And I really needed that. Everybody is benefiting in some way from it, I believe, even indirectly, because it's just more growth on the branches of the church. It's just more richness. And who is going to say poo-poo to more richness? It's like, what is wrong with you? Like, we don't need to be narrow. Jeez, quit. Anyway, so that was all just my little rant, kind of related to what you said. But then I thought of that app, and I was like, oh, I should mention that app. Not like I'm plugging it. I get
that's a great idea. It's a wonderful use of technology, to help people, another tool to help people that are struggling, and then to bring in that loving accountability, positive accountability. Again, not to shame, but to encourage and to motivate, because on our own, we're not meant to be just by ourselves. We don't have enough of what we need all alone. We weren't built for that. I mean, even the Trinity is a communion of persons.
Well, you and I have talked too about how when I left home and like my sisters got married and left, how it changed what we were able to do on our own. Because before it was, we were a community of women. We were a force. We made things happen. We got things done. We had just layers of, even just like holiday observances and all the things we could do because we were a team. And it was great. And now we're like, oh, shoot, I'm like really spread out in my little corner of the world. And, we talk to each other, but it's not the same. You have to find creative ways to keep that going, to build each other up, because our culture is very isolating in that way. Everybody values their independence so much, but that's the price you pay for that independence. And we don't, it's like we've forgotten how to be together, like to take our own family units and still be really collaborative on a regular basis and be enriched by that. So that's a poverty that we suffer from now that previous times have not the same way. Sorry, if you were not done saying what you were saying, I wasn't sure if you were, and I just ran in there.
No, it's okay. It's fine. It's just a conversation. Run.
Mow people over.
Yeah.
I thought of one thing that I wanted to ask you about. I won't keep you all night, but I was just thinking about, we were having this conversation about makeup routines the other day, which I don't really have one, but I put on a little bit once in a while. But you were telling me, like, I was surprised to hear that you were telling me, like, you've made a point to put on just like a certain basic amount pretty much every day. And as you were telling me about that, and you're like, you were talking about treating yourself in a utilitarian way. And I was like, oh, so I wonder if you could just kind of expound on that. Because again, it goes to the whole thing, like, if we're going to love ourselves properly, we don't use ourselves and objectify ourselves and treat ourselves as objects for accomplishing purposes, and that we're really of no importance, and just relegating ourselves to, the bottom of the barrel attention and care. So I just was like, ooh, I want to hear Mom talk about that a little bit more, because it was kind of like mind blowing.
So as a former perfectionist, hopefully I'm really moving away from that. But when I was in the thick of exploring that, and my mind was blowing as I was reading articles and of course talking with my therapist about all that, and I was really starting to see how damaging it was. So much about it, before understanding the negative implications, I just valued a lot of the qualities that I had developed in that. But I came across a quote, can't remember, it was a woman who said it, I can't remember her name now, but the quote was, perfectionism is self-abuse of the highest order. And I was just like shocked. Yeah, I went, whoa, that was an extreme thing to read. But then in my own reflections, as I had read things, I thought about things, I prayed about it, and I'm just sitting with that one day, and I thought, it's kind of like cannibalizing yourself, which is really icky, and objectifying and using yourself, and being very utilitarian. It's just, what can I achieve? What can I get done for other people, for the sake of other people, for the church, for the priest, for myself, but to just be, all about the goals and the getting things done and the whatever. Here's a funny little example. I think it's related. It's just really, so I have a dentist appointment next week. And yesterday I got a text from, I guess, the hygienist, saying, would you be interested in moving your appointment from 10:40, which is what I chose 6 months ago, to 8:20? And my first impulse was, oh, I should just say yes.
Help
and then
them out. Yeah, whatever.
I thought, why? And so I had this whole conversation with myself. I was just like, hold it. Wait a minute. Whoa. Anyway, I went through this whole process of, and I thought, in the past, I would have just said, oh, sure, no problem. And then but I stopped long. Why? Why would I say no problem? Because I want to please the other person. I want to make them happy. I want to accommodate them. It doesn't matter that I have to get up early and skip my morning routine to get there, so that you can rearrange the schedule. So I started thinking for the first time ever about, why is that even happening? Why do they have to juggle the schedule? It could be a big reason. I don't know. They didn't tell me. And so I just sat with that. I didn't answer right away because I thought, what do I want? Why did I pick that time? I had reasons why I picked that time 6 months ago. Again, I don't want to be inflexible. I'm not inflexible. It just was this funny little episode. So I wrestled with it for a while, and then I thought, I really just want to keep my time slot. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And if they have to change it, then they can give me more information to help me understand that. But the text came with no greeting. I'm not shooting anybody down, but it just said, it just came out of the blue. At least I had it labeled, my dentist's office. Would you be interested in changing your appointment? And I thought, they didn't even say hello. Why am I worried about being all like polite and proper and perfect and bending over backwards to it? I thought, just stop.
No, send.
I answered back and I put, hello. I actually prefer that 10:40 time slot. Is that a problem this time? Because I thought, well, I'll ask. Because and then by the time they responded, it's like, nope, no problem at all. We'll see you next week. That'll be fine. But I stopped. Why? Because I thought, it's okay, Kathleen, to sit with this for a minute and ask yourself some questions. And it's okay to say, I would really rather not bump my appointment, instead of, I'll do whatever you want me to so that you'll like me, so that I'll make you happy. And I'm like, I don't have to do that.
So that I won't be a blight on the face of the earth and a thorn in your side.
Yeah. I'm like,
why?
Wow.
Why did you go right there? Like, oh, let me apologize for existing because I don't want to get in your way or cost you anything. And it's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Actually, I can cost you something. I'm worth something. It's going to cost somebody at some point. So I might as well.
I know. So, but it's like, letting myself be pushed around or used. And I was happy to be that way before. I thought it was a good way to be. And it was mixed, because I brought goodwill and I wanted to be helpful. I really did. And I do like helping people. But now I will ask myself, why do you want to do that? What am I seeking? And if I do that and I'm honest, then I can know and go, I just really want to help them. Good. Or no, I really want them to like me, or I don't want to let them down, or I don't want to say no. Oh, well, those are different reasons. So yeah, utilitarian. Oh, and I had a recent experience with, I won't get into all the details, but with my mom. And that really brought that into focus recently, and so it was an encounter where she asked me to do something and I just said yes, like automatically. I didn't pause. I didn't give myself space to ask myself a question, even silently, or say, I'll get back to you. I never developed that habit of let me get back to you because I needed time to really think this through. Like I love my mom and I know she loves me, but I've also identified a real strong element of performance as a part of that relationship. So the first thing she asked me to do, and it's like, yeah, and then now I own it, and now I have to show up and execute that thing. And then the second time, then when I went to do that one thing, and then she asked me again, could you do this? And I felt a little funny, but again, I didn't say, can I get back to you? I was caught by surprise, even though it's a long-standing pattern. And I was home now trying to follow through on this thing that I said I would do. And I started to actually feel ill, which is not like me. I'm just like, I feel really lousy. And I think it has something to do with saying yes to this thing. Anyway, it passed. I waited a couple days. I tried again. I got ill again. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to push myself. This is utilitarianism to self. Letting myself be used to do something that someone else can do for themselves. And it kind of pollutes the relationship. That's how I'm perceiving it now. And my system subconsciously was triggered and making me literally sick. Again, that's a new experience for me. But I think it's because I have worked so hard to move away from that now I am hypersensitive to that element. And I do not want to re-engage with that. And I'm not even going to talk myself into it. I tried to. Oh, you can just do it this time and then never do it again. And I thought, why would I make myself do it one more time? Right. And it wasn't anything bad. It was not a bad thing to do. It just was an example. And so I did something I haven't done before and I changed my mind. And I returned the offer and the yes and the everything. And I just communicated that. And I said, you can do this. I can't do it. I literally, and I didn't get specific. I just said, I just can't do that. I love you and I'll visit you again soon. But I had to just bring it to an end. I could not let myself be used like that again. And it was a little request. It wasn't wrong. It wasn't immoral. There was, you know what I'm saying? It's just that I have become really sensitive to that. And it's odd to have that experience, but I'm grateful at the same time because I would probably slip back into talking myself into things, justifying it, oh, da, 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 da. And it's like, no, I don't need to do that anymore. Not even for my mother, not to myself. I need to purify things, let them be purified. If they need to be limited, then I need to embrace that. But I do not, using yourself is the opposite of loving yourself. Requiring yourself to perform and to just achieve things and to get things done and to not be kind and patient and, let yourself relax and enjoy and, have some happiness in your life. To take care of yourself, to maybe sleep. I mean, here's one of the things I've done. So a couple of years ago, I've gotten a lot of neurofeedback, and that's another fascinating topic for another time. But when you go, it's a treatment that you can just receive, and you don't have to talk about anything, and it's just as effective. Well, the gal who administers it, we've become really good friends. She's just awesome. So we had a lot of conversation. I mean, you really couldn't shut us up. I'm sure that's shocking. But anyway, I was talking to her about waking up to the alarm and then how I was responding. And I was, like tired or dragging, or I'd have to take a nap. So she asked me, well, what time did you set the alarm for? And I said 6. And she goes, why? And I said, well, I guess it's habit. But obviously I wasn't rested and it wasn't helping me. It was for some reason, I thought I needed to just keep getting up at 6 because it was a good idea. And that's what I did for a long time. Anyway, she goes, what would happen if you didn't set your alarm? And I was just like shocked. And I'm like, I don't know. And she goes, well, you are retired after all. You're not raising kids anymore. And, you know, and I said, you know, I'm going to think about that. I'm going to let myself be challenged. And I stopped setting an alarm. I only will use an alarm now if it's really important. Like I have a morning obligation and I have to show up for that. But I'm not making like the dentist appointment. I'm going to wake up and get to the dentist office by 10:40 in the morning without an alarm. But 8:20, might have to set an alarm for that. And so it seemed decadent. Okay. It seemed indulgent. It seemed whatever, like really almost wicked to not set an alarm and let myself just sleep as long as I want to. That it's been a point of self-care because I just thought, well, what will happen? Will I go off the rails? Will I become a hedonist? Will I just become completely irresponsible? Or no, that hasn't happened. Guess what? I just get rest. If I had a lousy night's sleep, I can just go back to bed and not worry about it. Go, well, I'll wake up when I'm ready to get up. Or if I get up and I'm stumbling around and I just feel like a corpse, I just crawl back in bed. And then I wake up. When I wake up the next time, it's amazing. It's like, oh, I'm good now. I mean, it's such a simple thing. And I don't know, if she hadn't said what would happen if you didn't set an alarm, I might not have thought of it. And it was really uncomfortable. And it was like, what am I going to turn into? You know, whatever. And anyway, I'm still doing it. And, interestingly enough, I will wake up without an alarm, like to get ready for mass on a Sunday morning. I don't set my alarm. I used to, and it stressed me out. Like I know I wasn't sleeping well at night in anticipation of the alarm or worrying that it wouldn't go off, or I'd wake up 3 hours ahead and look at it and it would drive me crazy. And now I say to my guardian angels sometimes I don't even think about doing that, but just, hey, make sure I wake up in time. And I don't even give them a time. I'm just like, just in time to get ready. And yeah, it'd be nice to, read a little bit or something before I go, but I haven't slept through mass yet. And so I don't know, is it a funny little example? It's a real example. It's one of the things I've let myself do. I realize not everyone can do that, but maybe more of us could. Maybe we can arrange our lives in a way to just be that relaxed. Or what about rest? What about sleep?
I mean, even business people will give financial advice and stuff, and they'll say, pay yourself first. Like if you want to get ahead financially, don't pay all the bills first and say, oh, what's left for me? Because guess what? There won't be anything left. So, I mean, and I was like, what? I mean, I still try to get my head around that one because it's like, it's such a mind bender, but people have made incredible, like, leaps financially in their business life by following advice like that, because they're like, I'm going to save this much money and invest it and I'll get to my bills later. And they do. Yeah. But it's like they're growing themselves on the side. And then it's like, just wait. Pretty soon there's going to be enough for everybody and more. And there is. And it's like weird. It's like you're creating surplus on the side to cover everything. So there's like kind of this void time where you're like waiting for it to overlap, but it will. And so even like that, investing in yourself and your needs, and like actually acknowledging that you have needs and what those are, so you identify them, because if you don't identify them, you can't tell anybody else what they are, and ask for them. And then like having boundaries, because that's another thing you're saying about this utilitarianism. It's like using yourself means you don't have boundaries because you are there for everyone else's use. You are the collective, the drinking fountain or whatever. Everybody just comes and pushes a button and you go, and and there you go. And it doesn't matter if there's anything left for you or, anything left. You don't even know who you are anymore. I just literally was talking to a friend of mine the other day. She's like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm just a mom. I just, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like someday your kids are going to leave the house and you're not going to know who you are. And you're going to look at your husband and be like, who are you?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, if you aren't feeding yourself, why the heck are you feeding your kids? That's one thing my therapist said to me recently. She's like, So you don't like taking care of yourself, and you really make time for hobbies and stuff, and you medicate with work and you do all these things. She's like, so what do you want your kids to do when they're adults? And I was like, oh, well, I want them to treat themselves well and take care of me. I want them to be fine. And she's like, well, they're going to do what you do. So you
Yes.
better tell them now what to do. Otherwise, they're going to do what you do and they're going to be in therapy.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for saying that, because it's like, again, it's not just for you.
Yes.
Nothing good that you do is going to just stay in one place. It affects
Nope.
everybody. I mean,
Yes.
especially in the body of Christ, like we're all in an organism together spiritually.
Yes.
And, even I consider that extends to really all humanity, because we're all,
Yes.
God's creatures.
Yes.
And we all bump around in this world together. We're all impacting each other. You know what?
Yes.
Without even the sanctifying grace element, it's like,
Yeah.
we're still in this together, in this stew. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh yeah, nothing that you do that's good will stay with you alone. It will go out, and the bad and disordered things you do also go out, and they have
Yes.
ripple effects. And it's like, oh, and your nearest and dearest, especially your kids, you're just like, oh, I want the best for them. I want them to love themselves and to be understood and encouraged. And it's like, oh, guess what? I
Yep.
have not
Yep.
done a good job of transmitting that yet, but thanks be to God, I'm in therapy now,
Yep.
and not when they're all out of the house, because
Yep.
that's one thing you said to me. Were like, I just like, it was time. I went to therapy for these reasons, and then I realized all these other reasons I should be there. And
Yeah.
and you were so grateful for everything you learned, but you were like, man, I'm learning this now,
Yeah.
and I can't go do anything about the things I already did, because they're done. My kids are formed, whatever. But still, you shared that with me.
Mhm.
I have the opportunity to be a chain breaker
Mhm.
for some of those things that now I don't have to pass on to my kids. God will,
Right.
I will do better. But it's like, you've made changes and broken from the bad stuff. You're better than you ever were. I mean, it's like the fruit is definitely there. Like, it's been so cool to see you developing and growing, and like all these things that, I don't know. It's like, you don't know how great people can be until they're greater. And then you're like, oh, I like you even more.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was possible.
That's good news. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, now I get to have my turn doing that, and hopefully, maybe beat the curve for my kids in some ways. And I won't do it for everything, but they can
Yeah.
do it in their own turn. And it's
Yeah.
like, we'll all just work it. But it's like, look at how much farther ahead we all are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can receive that, and
Right.
geez.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
and
man.
just the modeling, you're modeling for your kids. So I had to make decisions for myself. I mean, I knew it would impact you all in some way, because it would, because you're watching what I do with my life. But I couldn't worry too much about that. I had to just go for it and go, well, I have to do this thing, because I didn't know how everyone would receive it. And, there's a couple members of the family that aren't that keen on it, and that's okay. That's where they are. They're just like, what are you doing? That's nuts. And it's like, I have to do it. And so then most of the people in the family are just like, good job. This is great. And it's been good news. And then you were motivated positively to, pursue it on your own sooner. And so you're showing your kids, who are really young, it's okay to get help. It's okay to work through these things and to wrestle with it, and to engage the hard times and the hard stuff, that's not a disaster. That's actually really good. And you grow and you become better. And then they get to see that working out while they're living with you. So they're just going to grow up thinking, oh yeah, this is a good thing to do. And they won't have that stigma. They won't have that prejudice. They won't have that hurdle to get over. So if they ever choose to get that kind of help, they can just go, well, yeah, I can, there's no problem. That's a good thing to do. And they can just go do that. But they're also going to grow up with all this vocabulary. I mean, we have conversations about this stuff all the time, and we just perceive things differently. We identify things differently. We understand more. And so we can speak to it with comfort and with hope and expectation of good things to come. And so they're just going to grow up like, yeah, this is normal. And I say, yay.
My 5-year-old today said to my 9-year-old, he was doing something that bugged her, and not listening to her. And she goes, that's a boundary. Oh, it just cracked me up. And he was like, and he backed up and he quit. And I was like, yes. Almost every day I hear them saying something to each other about that, because it's like they're finally learning that how to talk about it to each other, and that they deserve to be respected.
Yes.
They deserve to be asked. They deserve to not be manhandled. It's like we are literally setting each other up, especially the young that we're forming, to be abused by not teaching them that they have dignity, that they can say no, that they can say, I'm not comfortable. Don't do that. I'm leaving. Don't, or just say, this much I will do and no more. And that's okay. And not feel like a terrible person, because it's like, they're just, wow. I mean, what we have suffered on our own because we've put ourselves through things that we never should have. And we learn from it, but hopefully we can spare people some unnecessary suffering from that. And man, it's exciting to see that happen, because it's so good and it's so true. And I'm like, and to feel that in myself too, that's like, I can live in a way I didn't live before. I feel better, more confident, and more peaceful. And it's like, I know that what I'm doing is right, and that's what God is leading me towards. I'm not just looking for something to do. I'm not indulging myself. I mean, we're always going to have struggles of different kinds, but just, and especially having supportive family members and stuff, husbands, whatever, like really helps. But even if you don't, it's like, why does that make them so uncomfortable? Why does that threaten them? Why, is it because it's just so like, it's something they don't want to look at? And it's like, well, that's where they are. But you don't have to be there. You don't have to let them determine the progress that you make and the self-discovery that you make. And if you pursue that, despite the odds, you can bless so many people in ways they maybe never expected, that it's like they will probably maybe thank you for later. And even if they don't, you will have that inner certainty that you did not hold back. You did not turn from the plow, take your hand from the plow and back. Like you went ahead and did the right thing, even if it was hard, but it's going to have amazing benefits even in this life. And that you don't have to feel guilty for doing that. And you don't measure yourself by what other people are thinking about it or telling you, because you and God are discerning. You have intuition that's valuable. It's a gift. It's a spiritual gift. It's like God means for us to know him and to follow him, and directly to have communication with him, and not to have to be dictated to in everything in our lives, and to second guess everything. And trust is like such a key to this whole thing. Trusting God and that he will lead you, and even trusting yourself.
Yes, that's huge, 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 because it's another part of you that you realize has been very damaged. That, you've been forcing yourself through different things. And I think that's probably true for a lot of people. It has been for me too. And that element of trusting myself, trusting that my impulses are, largely good. I mean, I'm a weak person too. I sin. I go to confession. I say I'm sorry. And that's just part of what I have to accept about the human condition in this life. It's not a curse. It's an opportunity to keep going deeper into union with God. But the trust of, like the dentist appointment, it's like just having that conversation and going, you can do that. It's an okay thing to do. It's not bad, and just go ahead and stand up for yourself and say, this is what I want. And whatever happens, happens. And it's not going to blow you away or mow you over or end your life. It's not a catastrophe. We can really get stuck there. And that can be a result from a lot of hurt from the past. We're not blowing that off, but these are the things you get to see about your story and your experiences. And then you identify your responses to all that. And you go, wow, I did not know that I was doing that, or why. That's why therapy can be so beneficial, because it just turns the light on in these dark places. And then, trust. There's just, trust is the whole loving trust in God and his goodness is the whole thing. And I like what you said about discerning with God directly. One of the things I got to experience, and I'm still growing it is that sense of, where do I get my validation from? And I learned that I really tried to get my validation from what other people thought. And what I thought they thought, which of course I didn't really know, I was guessing, that's very shaky ground. That is not a stable source of affirming who you really are. But God is a sure, secure, true source of that. And when you can lean on that, oh my goodness, it frees you from so much wrong, bad behavior, or distorted behavior, misguided behavior, in trying to seek other people's approval, or affirmation from, all around. And, it never satisfies. For my own self, I can say it never really satisfied. I was never full up on it. I was constantly seeking it. It was this restless seeking, never satisfied. Well, this whole exercise of letting God show you who you are in his eyes, he inviting you into, delighting in your own being, like he delights in our being. That's the source of it right there. When you approach that, you start to understand, this is what my existence is about. God tells me who I am. Nobody else does. Nobody else does. And when you enter into that, now you're standing on solid rock. And the storms can come, and people can throw their comments or whatever behavior from the past that used to make you behave in a certain way. It just kind of like slides off. Or you might, fall, and then you go, wait a minute, I'm not doing that anymore. I know where my value comes from. I know who I am. And it's not them, that your own parents, your siblings, your own kids, whoever. We're affected in many ways by what we think they believe about us. And it's like, but that's not the truth about who we are. God tells us who we are. Period.
That's awesome. What a great note to end our video.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, thank you so much for sitting and talking through this, because I was like, self-care, we could talk about that in like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. It's like, no, there's like, we could do a whole series on this.
Oh yeah, because it goes on and on.
Mom and I need more videos. That's another way I'm loving myself, is instead of just like, I just work and slave and then I do ministry. It's like, I like making videos. I want to do more fun videos, including my mom videos, because we just have such a great time talking. And it's like, so many times we're having these conversations and we're like, and I'm like, oh man, I just wish I could share this with somebody, because it's so good, It's hard to keep it to myself. Anyway, so now, thank you for coming on and talking with me about this.
Oh, well, of course. It's fun just to, explore things with you. It's always so much fun and enlightening, and I always learn new things. And sometimes we actually are sparking on each other, and that's just wonderful. But I hope people that see it are also built up, inspired. They find some hope, maybe some courage, or maybe just, to whatever, for the next step that they need to take, and to know that it's going to be okay. St. Julian of Norwich, I can't remember the year I've read about her, and she's been inspiring to me. But a quote of hers is, I should have more specifics, but oh well. She goes, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. And when you first hear that, you're like, really? And it's like, yeah, it's true. That is true. She was an anchorite. She literally lived in a cell that was stuck on the outside of a church, and all she could see through the window, the tabernacle or whatever, she could receive communion there. And she lived in solitude for a long time, and she was amazing. But that it's true. All is well if we're willing to seek the truth. Who is God? He's a person, and he loves us like crazy, like a madman. More than that. And there's nothing you can do to change it. There's nothing you can do to change it. And he just wants you to join him there.
That's so cool. Yay! Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're praying for you, all of our viewers. And thank you so much for watching. And we will see you next time. God bless you.
God bless you. Bye.